recent polls show 76% of those surveyed say Chicago would be better off with a different mayor. How do you convince them otherwise?
Well, look, the people of Chicago elected me to invest in people. In every single category as it relates to investments, they're up. I actually am humbled that the people of Chicago believe in my administration enough to have greater expectations than any other administration. That's what leadership looks like, and I'm humbled to do it.
Why do you say that? Why do you say that there's greater expectations? I don't know where I hear that. Because, and then the feedback instead is that the polling is poor. So how do I don't know how you interpret it that way.
Well, because maybe because I'm a middle child. Maybe it's because I'm a Bears fan. By the way, the Bears are undefeated in 2025, so we're off to a great start.
Have anything
Here's
to do
what I'm
with...
saying, though. Look, the people of Chicago voted for me to invest in them, and that's exactly what we've done. And I'm going to continue to do that.
Boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. Once again, we got to talk about woke Mayor Brandon Johnson. We got to talk about Chicago. You know, the city that the woke mayor doesn't want us to talk about. Okay, he doesn't want people like me talking about Chicago, because people like me, I am exposing his corruption. Okay, people like me are making it hard for progressives to rip off the people in the name of trying to fight against the rich, right? Because they claim that that's what they're all about, right? They're all about punishing the rich people, the billionaires. They're the problem. Okay, they need to pay more taxes. However, the grift of the progressive left is that they like to project, right? They express hate and vitriol towards billionaires because they want to be rich, right? And that is the whole purpose of them being in office, is to get rich, okay? And that's essentially what's going on with Brandon Johnson. And I'm going to talk about his grift here, as again, I've been talking about a lot of these progressive mayors, governors that are running their municipalities, their states into the ground. I am hoping that the American people are seeing through the ruse that is the modern day progressive movement. Okay, it is one big grift to get rich, while at the same time trying to demonize the rich, right? And pretending as if they're helping the poor, but they're really not, okay? They're helping themselves, okay? And that's exactly what's happening with woke Mayor Brandon Johnson out in Chicago, as he is being confronted by reporters on his disastrous poll numbers, okay? His approval rating is in the tank, probably the worst ever for Chicago mayor. I mean, who could have imagined that Chicago would end up electing a bigger lunatic than Lori Lightfoot, okay? I thought that Lori Lightfoot was the worst they could do. No. Brandon Johnson actually makes Lori Lightfoot look at least somewhat competent. But hey, the people of Chicago elected Brandon Johnson probably for the same reasons that they elected Lori Lightfoot and Karen Bass out there in Los Angeles. The reason why they elected her is because he's black, right? And you got to vote for the black person because the black progressive, they're looking out for the people, okay? And I'm hoping and praying that these people, okay, these liberal voters have learned their lesson when it comes to voting for these DEI candidates. Because Brandon Johnson, again, his numbers are in the tank, and he's being confronted left and right over the fact that the people are rejecting his progressive agenda. Take a look.
Earlier in 2023, you were elected a little over 52% of the vote in the mayoral's race. But in the most recent poll of Chicago voters, that you had a 14% approval rating with a 70% disapproval rating. I know you mentioned that there's a lot of numbers that you care about and that you were pointing to things that you are talking about doing for the city, but in a democracy, what really matters is how the voters perceive your administration's work. So why are you so unpopular?
Well, I mean, look, you know, fortunately for me, that I'm not moved by polls. They're a snapshot at a point of time. Like, people have their expression and opinion of whether or not, you know, we should hire more young people. You know, people have an opinion on whether or not we should open up mental health clinics. Clearly, people have an opinion on whether or not we should, you know, stay to international and national law. That people have those opinions, you know, and, you know, I can say this emphatically. I was elected to build a better, stronger, safer Chicago. And I will stop at nothing to ensure that that happens.
Yeah, so the reason why woke Mayor Brandon Johnson has such a low approval rating is because the progressive agenda, the progressive policies that he believes in don't work, right? They don't work. They harm people, okay? Everywhere we've seen this progressive experiment, it has failed, okay? But the left, they'll continue to say, no, we haven't really seen it yet. It hasn't really been tried yet, right? Communism hasn't really been tried. We haven't really seen a communist state yet. This is why we don't know if it'll work, right? But I promise you, the progressive utopia, it exists, right? It can happen. It's out there, okay? But, whether you look at LA, San Francisco, Seattle, Portland, Chicago, New York, some of the most progressive cities in this country, everywhere this progressive experiment has been tried, it has led to disastrous results, okay? Everywhere. Brandon Johnson has decided, because of his progressive ideology, to put the illegal immigrants first, okay? He spent hundreds of millions of dollars of taxpayer money on illegal immigrants, and he went out of his way to attempt to raise property taxes to pay for the illegal immigrants, while the actual people suffer, okay? They're losing out on resources. They're not getting the same resources and opportunities that the illegal immigrants are getting. But you know who's getting rich? His progressive, liberal, nonprofit buddies, right? Who are taking care of the illegal immigrants, right? The companies that are contracted with the city to receive the funds, the hundreds of millions of dollars that is being spent on the illegal immigrants. Yeah. That money is going into the pockets of his progressive friends. They're getting rich. You know who also is about to get rich from Brandon Johnson? The teachers union, because Brandon Johnson just survived the budget battle, barely, okay? And now he has to negotiate a new contract with the teachers union out in Chicago, a failed teachers union, because we know that the students of Chicago can't read, they can't write at grade level. It's been an absolute disaster, okay, from an academic results standpoint. But despite all this, Brandon Johnson wants to continue to fund their pensions and to give them raises at the expense of the taxpayer. And he doesn't care if the city goes bankrupt, if he bankrupt the city even more, to do it, right? He doesn't care at all. It must be funded no matter what, okay? And Brandon Johnson has been confronted on this clear conflict of interest, because Brandon Johnson, as mayor, technically he is still a part of the Chicago Teachers Union, which again is a conflict of interest that Brandon Johnson really doesn't want to talk about too much. But again, that's clearly the reason why he is so embedded and so determined to get the teachers unions their pay raises and their pensions, despite the fact that they've been an epic failure.
The controversy over Mayor Brandon Johnson's status with the Chicago Teachers Union has taken a new turn. Ethical questions persist about the mayor's role in ongoing CTU contract talks. And now the city's Board of Ethics is weighing in, denying that their office ever advised the mayor on the issue. Political reporter Marianne Ahern is here now with more. Marianne?
Alex, the mayor says he's a member on leave from CTU, which means potentially he may benefit from the very contract the city is now negotiating. This was my first question to Mayor Johnson earlier this week. Let's start with a yes or no question. Is it proper to negotiate a CTU contract if, as a member on leave, you are going to benefit from that contract?
Well, I'm not going to benefit from the contract.
Officially, he has not resigned from CTU.
So I am on leave from Chicago Public Schools, but I'm not negotiating a contract. The Board of Education has that responsibility.
But with elected school board members joining next week, the mayor still appoints the majority of the school board. While the mayor's team suggested they were advised there were no ethical concerns, Steve Berlin, the executive director of the City Board of Ethics, denies he was ever asked for advice on the mayor's union status. Berlin tells NBC5, quote, "The Board of Ethics was not asked about on-leave arrangements with the CTU or CPS under the city's governmental ethics ordinance and has issued no opinions addressing this issue." William Quinlan is CPS CEO Pedro Martinez's attorney.
If he is on leave with the Chicago Teachers Union and has a relationship with the Chicago Teachers Union, he's on one side of the table and Chicago Public Schools is on the other.
Shortly after the mayor took office in June of 2023, Ben Felton, the CPS chief talent officer, said in a memo about the mayor's CTU status, he was, quote, concerned that could be a potential conflict of interest for the mayor to be an employee of an organization that he was overseeing.
Because at the end of the day, what we all want as good public servants, what anyone wants is the best deal here.
David Grising with the Better Government Association.
The question for the mayor is, why do you need to maintain that status? How do you benefit? How does the city benefit?
Yeah, come on. It's clear what's going on here, right? Not only is Brandon Johnson trying to get his teacher union buddies paid, he's also trying to ensure that he has job security once he is voted out of office, right? Because that's definitely going to happen sooner than later. And he needs to make sure that he has a nice, cushy, comfortable job to go back to with the Chicago Teachers Union after he loses his job as mayor, okay? Now, I want you guys to understand how corrupt this is. This guy, as mayor, just appointed members to the school board after the school board quit due to the fact that the mayor insisted that the CEO take out a high-interest, multi-hundred-million-dollar loan to fund the teachers union, okay? Even though the city can't afford it, okay, can't afford it at all. The school board resigned. He appointed his own members, and those members are responsible for firing the CEO because the CEO didn't want to get on board with Brandon Johnson's plan of giving the teachers union a handout. And when confronted on how is it that he's going to continue to pay for these handouts to the teachers union, like all progressives, he doesn't really have an answer, right? He doesn't have an answer at all when it comes to the details.
Mayor Brandon Johnson had a lot to say during our 15-minute interview today, but time after time he refused to answer the question itself, which a watchdog group says raises questions about accountability. Today, Governor Pritzker also criticizing the mayor over communication shortcomings. Mayor Brandon Johnson just off a brutal battle over his budget, now with the pressing problem of the new contract for the Chicago Teachers Union.
The people of Chicago have voted for me, and they have entrusted me to fight for public education, to ensure that every single child from one end of the city to the other end has everything that they need, and that's what we're going to secure in our public schools.
So how do you pay for the CTU contract?
Well, look, this is not just simply about a contract. This is about a vision for public education.
But when that vision included pushing CPS CEO Pedro Martinez to take out a $300 million high-interest loan to pay for the teacher's contract, Martinez balked. The entire school board then resigned, allowing Johnson to appoint new members who fired Martinez. He sued in court and remains CEO for 6 months per his contract. Do you still support taking out the high-interest loan to make this contract happen?
So here's what I support. A fully funded education system.
Mayor, but we're talking about how you're going to pay for it. Do you support taking out this high?
I support a fully funded education system.
When I asked
them, so again, this is typical of progressives, right? How you gonna pay for it? I don't know, right? I support a fully funded education. Okay, well, what does that mean? He doesn't have an answer. He doesn't have an answer because, again, he's willing to do anything. He's willing to financially bankrupt the city to fund his progressive agenda no matter what. No matter what. He doesn't care about the cost. He doesn't care if the city can afford it. He doesn't care if the city's going to have to raise taxes. As long as his progressive buddies are getting paid, right? The progressives that are taking care of their illegal immigrants, the progressives that are in the school systems, again, his buddies, as long as his buddies and himself, as long as they're benefiting, he will do whatever. Screw everybody else. But again, these are the people that stand on their high horse pretending as if they're fighting against the rich. Well, no, they're fighting to be rich, okay? Progressives don't fight against the rich. They fight to be rich. That's what they do, okay? And you're seeing it happen right now, right? It's playing out right in front of our faces.
Mayor, if he could avoid a property tax hike this year, he rattled off what he's funded this year instead.
These are all critical investments that we've made without laying people off as well as furloughs.
But right? I asked you about a property tax.
Now we have to continue to fight for progressive revenue.
He had his talking points, which likely were scripted in his mind before he sat down for the interview, but he wasn't responding to very specific questions that came from you as a proxy for the general public that is likely asking very much the same questions.
Governor J.B. Pritzker also with strong words today for Mayor Johnson, suggesting a strained relationship with Springfield. The governor saying he's only heard from Johnson perhaps 5 times since he's been mayor.
They don't reach out very often, and it seems like they don't have good relationships in Springfield, in part because they don't do the outreach that's necessary.
This afternoon, the mayor's office responded saying their recollection is different than the governor's about their relationship. Kennedy Bartley, the chief external affairs officer, adding they don't want to get into a back and forth and politicize the issue. Instead, she said they're focusing on collaborating with lawmakers and the governor in the spring legislative session. We'll see how that goes.
Watch.
Wow. Wow. Corruption right in front of your face, guys. Mismanagement of resources, mismanagement of city funds, priorities out of line. Again, you see this everywhere. In every single last one of these cities that are led by progressive leadership, you see the exact same thing. The exact same thing. Why is it? It's because these people do not know how to govern. They're not governing for the people. They're governing for themselves. They're enriching themselves while pointing the finger at the rich, the billionaires. Like, oh, they're the problem. They're the ones that's the issue. You need to pay attention to them while they get rich. It's the oldest trick in the book, man. It's the oldest trick in the book. And, at some point, hopefully these voters stop falling for it. But, hey, as long as they continue to fall for it, this is the result. They're going to be upset. They're going to be mad. They're going to be angry. And, hey, it is what it is. It's just a damn shame that these people have to experience the policies, right? And the negative results, the disastrous results of these progressive policies in order to realize that, hey, this ain't good, right? This is bad. So let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.